Behind me is California. In front of me is Oregon.
In this adventure, we will be exploring each of the 4 geographic corners of Oregon.
If we think about Oregon as a very imperfectly drawn rectangle, you can easily identify 4 corners. 2 of them are easy. The southwest and southeast corners fall on the artificially geometric border intersections of different states and the ocean. But up in the northwest and northeast, there are in fact corners to be found. At each of these 4 corners, there is something interesting to find, and it's the purpose of this documentary to share what we found with you. In this special program, we're going to share with you an adventure we embarked on back in 2022, the longest and hardest road trip our crew has ever gone on for field reporting purposes. 2 weeks and over 1,600 miles. But the footage has never been shown until now. We started where our team is based in Ashland, Oregon, and proceeded through Coast Range twisting roadways to where we find ourselves now at the southwest corner of Oregon, this random spot on the beach. Over in the adjacent town of Brookings, we'll learn about this samurai sword hanging from the library's walls. We'll go north by way of Highway 101 to see the wreck of the Peter Iredale and visit Fort Stevens at the northwest corner, where we'll get more than we bet on in terms of accessibility challenges. We'll go east along Interstate 84 until we enter the extremely remote wilderness areas of Hell's Canyon to find the northeast corner. Headed south through the eastern Oregonian deserts, we'll eventually find ourselves in the wide open spaces of the southeast corner, inhabited by mystic characters and paranormal stories. Then, we'll cut back west and head for home. While the idea of reaching the 4 corners of Oregon is what motivated this adventure, we found that the bulk of our fun and educational experiences came from the numerous random, unplanned, and unexpected side stops we found along the way. This is us as we are, hitting the road for a new special installment. This is the 4 Corners of Oregon. The first stop on our northbound journey is the harbor town of Brookings. This misty community is known for a fascinating, one-of-a-kind World War II story, memorialized at the Chetco Community Public Library. This samurai sword, over 400 years old, hangs from one of the walls.
My name is Catlin Liddell. I am the Assistant Director of the Chetco Community Public Library in Brookings, Oregon.
You are going to tell us an amazing story from Oregon's history today.
Yes, I'm going to be telling you about Nobuo Fujita, how he bombed the forests outside of Brookings, Oregon on September 9th, 1942.
People were pretty afraid back then that there would be a Japanese attack on the West Coast, but it never really came to fruition.
Yes, so this is the only aerial bombing that took place on the mainland U.S. The submarine that Fujita served on ended up in the coastal waters outside of Brookings, Oregon in late August. They had a mission to bomb the forests of a more remote area, specifically Brookings, because they wanted to reduce morale and cause panic. The way that they transported Fujita's plane was really unique. Essentially, it was a float plane. It was called the Glen by the Allies. They had a watertight compartment up top. They would very quickly take it out, assemble it, and then use an air-driven catapult to launch it into the air to fly the missions. On the morning of September 9th, Fujita woke around 4 o'clock in the morning, got ready for his mission. They started flying due east, ended up in the mountains, the Mount Emily area, a few miles east of Brookings. It was a very foggy morning, so they had stealth on their side. They dropped a couple of bombs and then very quickly made their way back. Residents of the community heard the plane. They sent Forest Service personnel out to investigate the fires because they did see smoke. Because it was such a wet day and a foggy day, the fires were very small and they put a couple out, but most of them went out on their own.
So in a short while, we are going to be going up to the bomb site. Can you tell me a little bit about what we might expect to find up there?
Well, drive carefully. It's a very remote area. To this day, it's heavily forested area that's accessible mainly by logging roads, so be prepared. It's about a mile hike in, and there will be a marker there that you'll be able to see. And it's just a very, very wild, quiet, reflective place to think about, like, this very strange piece of World War II history.
That gets us to the story behind the sword that's out there in the library.
The Brookings Harbor JCs, that's the Junior Chamber of Commerce. They have a saying in their creed that the brotherhood of man transcends the sovereignty of nations. And they decided that what better way to do that than to reach out to Fujita and invite him during peacetime as a guest of the Azalea Festival. Fujita accepted, and then when they let the town know what was going on, this huge firestorm of controversy erupted in the community. There were some people who felt very, very strongly he should not be invited under any circumstances. It had been less than 20 years since the war had ended. There were a lot of veterans in this community that had fought in the Pacific Theater. They just didn't see how it would be appropriate to invite someone who had essentially attempted to harm and kill members of the Brookings community to their Azalea Festival. On the other side of the coin, too, though, they reached out. They got letters of support from the governor at the time and from President John F. Kennedy.
And then Fujita, what did he think of all of this?
He said he was very shocked. He also agreed with them that this was very good for improving U.S. and Japanese relationships, and he felt very strongly about that. He ends up watching the parade with his family. People were walking up to shake his hand. People were trying to get photographs of him. They said like little trails of small children were following them around the entire time. At the culmination of the festival, he ended up presenting his sword to the city of Brookings in a ceremony at City Hall. And that's a very significant thing. That sword had been with his family for, at that point, around 400 years. He would take that sword with him on his flight missions. It was a very important piece of family history to him. He mentioned when he did present the sword to the city of Brookings that it is a tradition to present your sword to a former enemy. It's a thing of honor. And then he made quite a few visits to the area in the early and mid-90s before his death in 1997. On one of Fujita's final visits, they ended up planting a redwood seedling out there. I believe it's an Oregon heritage tree now.
This redwood sapling, planted in the name of peace, and this obelisk mark the exact spot where Fujita's bombs fell.
Ever since the war, Brookings remained a major part of Nobuo Fujita's life. And now with his ashes spread on this hillside, Nobuo Fujita remains a major part of Brookings.
Healing is possible after conflict. It is possible for two opposing sides to come together and find common ground. So I just hope that's not forgotten.
After driving down from Mount Emily, we continued north on Highway 101. North of Coos Bay, the sandy landscape of the Oregon Dunes are revealed. The Siuslaw National Forest contains one of the largest expanses of temperate coastal sand dunes in the world. 31,500 acres of recreation area are available to the public. Whew, it's quite a climb to get up on top of these dunes.
there. Did you see that?
And what do you guys do here in Newport?
Crabber, black cod, halibut, salmon. I fished on big boats, little boats. I've been out of this jetty here and been all the way across the Pacific and landed in Dutch Harbor twice. I fished for like 40 years.
This is the capital of Dungeness, globally. Round, round, up and down. That's what we say the block turns in.
If the block ain't turning, the lock ain't earning.
We're in the town of Depot Bay, home of the world's smallest harbor.
We just got in from a fishing trip.
Fantastic. What's it like working out of the supposed world's smallest harbor?
It's great. It's a beautiful place. You're right on the water, so you get immediate access to it, so it's a lot of fun. You just have to get experience on how to run the bar when it's rough here. That's kind of probably the biggest difference here versus a lot of other ports where you have a lot more room to make mistakes. Some days it's rough, some days it's not. Usually we start to get this time of year, it's usually nice most of the time.
This is Cape Kiwanda. It's home to Oregon's largest sand dune, 240 feet high.
Let's go climb it.
I did this climb when I was little, so doing it again when I'm older now kind of goes to show me how much energy I had as a kid.
How big it is up here, it makes you feel tiny.
And we had so much fun just climbing up and then just running down it.
And I love seeing the sandstone that comes up, the different colors, and you can see so far.
Oh, my name's William. I live in the area, love the area. How could you not, right? Very cool to hike up these sand dunes. Super cool sea cave down there when the tide's really coming in at high tide and it's high tide for that day, it's just crashing in there.
The town of Seaside, more specifically the statue at the roundabout on the beachfront promenade in Seaside, marks the end of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. But it wasn't here that Lewis and Clark first sighted the Pacific Ocean. That happened further north at the mouth of the Columbia River in November of 1805. When the Corps of Discovery settled in there to wait out the winter, they quickly ran out of salt, which was needed for preserving meat. So they dispatched a party to find a good spot for boiling seawater to make sea salt. The party settled on a spot roughly 15 miles south, in the middle of what is today Seaside. Because this salt camp represents the furthest extent of the Corps' travels, the statue End of the Trail was placed nearby in 1990.
We're getting closer to the northwest corner. Relics of a weathered history here at the mouth of the Columbia River dot our route to the tip of the Clatsop Spit.
The Peter Iredale was a British-owned, four-masted steel sailing ship. On October 25, 1906, while waiting for a guide boat to bring her through the mouth of the Columbia, a sudden shift in winds and currents slammed her into the sands of Clatsop Beach, snapping 3 of her masts and stranding her 27-man crew amid a howling storm. The entire crew and 2 stowaways were rescued, and one of the rescuers recalled watching as the red-bearded Captain Lawrence stood at attention on the beach, saluted his ship, and said, "May God bless you, and may your bones bleach in these sands," before turning to his men with a bottle of whiskey and saying, "Boys, have a drink."
A little north of the Peter Iredale is Fort Stevens, which is a great place to spend an afternoon exploring. During World War II, this fort was attacked by the Japanese submarine I-25, the very same submarine that would later support Nobuo Fujita's bombing run in Brookings.
Fort Stevens was established in 1865 to protect the mouth of the Columbia from hypothetical Confederate attacks. It passed through the years without any incident until June 21, 1942. The 17 shots fired from the sub's deck gun did minimal damage to the fort, mostly landing in a baseball field and a swamp due to the immediate blackout enforced by the fort's commander. But the incident marked the only time that a military base in the contiguous United States was attacked by the Axis powers during World War II.
And finally, after 4 days of traveling through the beauty, the history, and the people of the Oregon coast, we've arrived.
Where we are now is the south jetty of the Columbia River, which marks the furthest northwest point in Oregon.
Whoa, hold on. The atlas says that the border goes up and around this little island there, Sand Island.
Even though the Columbia River marks the northern border of Oregon for almost its entire distance, a number of sandbars and islands on the far side of the river from the rest of Oregon are included in the state boundaries. Sand Island is among them, with the true northwest corner of Oregon here.
Why don't you just say what it is you are about to do?
It's hard to describe something absurd, isn't it? Yeah, I'm gonna try to take this fierce green machine over to Sand Island.
The northwest corner of Oregon. Godspeed, Lewis.
This whole thing was kind of a desperate move, so don't try it yourself. Kayaking around the mouth of the Columbia River can be dangerous if conditions are not optimal. We were only able to pull this off because we had perfect weather, and even then, it still carries risk.
Out in the channel, there are these weird little spots where it's just a really strong current, and then right next to that, no current at all. For a while, I was paddling really hard, and I kept looking over to my left at this log on the island that was next to me. And every time I would look over and it was just in the same position. And I was just starting to get pretty tired, and then I just moved over a little bit and started making some headway.
What was your impression of Sand Island?
That was great. Very undisturbed. The sand wasn't compacted at all. So when I stepped off the kayak, my boot went probably like 8 inches into the sand. It was really nice though. Sort of grassy and sandy like you'd expect, but yeah, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
We have taken the northwest corner of Oregon. Now we move east.
For the next 250 miles, we'll be traveling in parallel to the Columbia River, which is home to an abundance of islands geographically similar to Sand Island. The most famous of which is the agrarian paradise of Sauvie Island. There's plenty of berry picking and pumpkin harvesting activities for tourists on the island to enjoy, but what draws our attention is the wreckage of this strange UFO-looking vehicle on the shore of Collins Beach.
In the early 1970s, Oregonian Richard Ensign was convinced that a societal collapse was imminent, so he spent 2 years and $10,000 constructing this boat. It was driven by a paddle wheel and 2 sails and could sleep 12 people. This thing is made mostly out of a sort of frame of wire, kind of like chicken wire, covered in cement.
It made its maiden voyage to Astoria in 1973 and continued to be used until the flood of 1996 tore it from its moorings and deposited it here on Collins Clothing Optional Beach.
Any well-traveled Oregonian will know the enjoyment of our state's abundant clothing optional areas, but today we need to make good time passing through the urban metropolis of Portland. A stop to visit Lewis's grandmother was essential.
Do all you guys live in the same house now?
East of Portland is the Columbia River Gorge.
And drop it.
Few, if any, man-made structures in the state of Oregon are as beloved and iconic as Vista House. Perched at the tip of Crown Point, 733 feet above the river, it provides an unparalleled view of the Columbia Gorge to over 1 million visitors each year. If you've visited Oregon, there's a good chance you've seen Multnomah Falls. Receiving over 2 million tourists each year, it's the most visited natural recreation site in the Pacific Northwest. It stands at 542 feet high, making it the 4th highest waterfall in the country.
This is the Bonneville Dam. Since we were nearby, we called to see if there was anyone who could show us around.
I really appreciate you accommodating us last minute like this.
No worries. So we are in the Bradford Island Recreation Area, which overlooks the spillway at Bonneville here. So it's about 150,000 cubic feet per second coming through right now. We have a multi-mission facility, hydropower, navigation, recreation, fish passage, and environmental stewardship.
All right, this seems like it's a really fun place.
It is. It's pretty exciting to see them up close. One of the few locations that you can see active underwater fish passage.
Just give me a brief overview of the history of the Bonneville Dam. How long has it been around?
Okay, built early in the 1930s. That's the original construction that happened in 1938. It was part of President Roosevelt's project to bring people back to work after the Depression. It started out with just a couple generators and expanded to 10 in the first powerhouse. So we are overlooking the Powerhouse 1. You'll see the ones that have the lights on. Those are the ones that are currently operating. Kind of a unique concept or benefit of hydropower is you have flexibility. If you have water, you can work to match the demand. And when we're all getting up in the morning, cooking, cleaning, again in the evening, you'll get peaks in power demand. So we can adjust that by allowing water into different generators to accommodate that demand. We generate about 1,200 megawatts of power. That's enough to supply an area about the size of Portland with electricity. We are part of the electrical grid that Bonneville Power Administration manages in the Pacific Northwest region. Potentially anywhere in 14 western states, you might be getting some electricity that was generated here at the dam.
And how long have you worked here?
On and off about 32 years. Wow. Something new every day.
We've been on the road for 6 days. After bedding down in La Grande, we have one more day of driving and hiking ahead of us to get to the northeast corner of Oregon.
One of the most persistent problems we've had is our water reserve gasket leaking. Quite annoying.
Christ's sake.
We left LeGrand heading north, and after less than a half an hour, passed through the town of Elgin. Back in the 1800s, it would have taken a person on horseback all day to ride from LeGrand to this Subway sandwich fast food restaurant. In order to reach the northeast corner of Oregon, which is on the shore of the Snake River at the bottom of Hell's Canyon, we must travel deep into the Hell's Canyon National Recreation Area, which is as remote as it is beautiful. One of the very few settlements in the extreme north part of the canyon area is Cache Creek Ranch, which we plan to use as a major waypoint on our journey down to the corner. We believe that we'll be able to access Cache Creek Ranch from the Oregon side of the Snake River by driving in via very rough National Forest roads. Once at Cache Creek Ranch, we will hike along the shore of the Snake River to our target.
Where Google Maps says there is a road here, there is actually not a road.
Thank God the plants have thorns on them.
It gets easier up here.
A 14-mile out-and-back hike lies ahead of us, down into Hell's Canyon, an elevation change from high point to low of 3,350 feet, all the way down, and when we're done, back up.
The weather has been just all over the place today. We've had like extremely hot sun, and then now it's hailing on us. Pretty large stones too. Yeah. That's Cache Creek right there. Yeah, it's a turkey.
Hello, Cache Creek Ranch.
Snake River. Woohoo! Made it. We're here at Cache Creek Ranch. We just talked to the two lovely people inside who volunteer to keep care of this place.
Cache Creek is just below the northern boundary of Oregon, the Washington-Oregon border on the Snake River, and it's the official entryway into the Hell's Canyon National Recreation Area.
We caretake the property, keep the yard mowed and available for people to come through and enjoy the fruit orchard and the picnic tables.
We see lots of charter commercial boats taking parties up either for fishing or just for sightseeing. Enjoy the rest of your tour.
Thank you very much.
They'll take a break here and their customers will come and check out the museum, which it's small, but it's a really cool museum, and check out the property itself. The Cache Creek Ranch goes back to the turn of the 19th century. Used to be a big sheep operation here. 14,000
sheep
they were raising in this area.
So the camas plant is focused here, and the coos, the plants that were harvested for the roots and were important for maintaining life. The name of Cache Creek Ranch comes from an individual who came through and found the salmon and big game caches that the Nez Perce left here. We expect students to come, fourth graders in particular, come for their Idaho history or Oregon history lessons. And so some really fun displays about what's the difference between horns and antlers.
Stone axe head, arrow points that have been found in the area, and these are all protected by federal law because they're irreplaceable, as you can imagine. Older than I can think.
There's a lot of history and a related history here.
Mm-hmm. So our mission today is to get to the northeast corner of Oregon.
Yep.
About a mile in that direction. What can you tell me about the lay of the land, especially right now, because it looks like the river is very high?
It's the beaches pretty much are all covered up, so you're going to have some fun walking along the edge. Just don't fall in. But it really isn't that far, and you can see that there should be enough of the edge for you to make it up to the boundary between Asotin County, Washington, and Wallowa County, Oregon, which is right where we are.
Tripp gets the credit on the discovery of this one. Yep, keen eyes. Wow. Well, after an arduous 5 hours of hiking, we're finally here at the northeast corner of Oregon. We're here on the Snake River. Right up there on that hillside is the Welcome to Oregon sign. This is Oregon, of course. Over there is Idaho. And Down the river from us is Washington.
Well, it's wonderful that y'all are making this trip.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. I'm relieved to have found such a nice place at the end of our long hike and such nice people. It was really good to have met you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we finished the corner. Now we have about an 8-mile hike back to the car.
It was the hardest physical feat any of us had ever accomplished.
We are just dying, but we're really close now to the highest point that we have to go. See that little notch? From that point, it's all downhill back to the car.
The next morning, we ate a massive breakfast, then drove off towards the town of Joseph and Wallowa Lake.
Given its location, it's no wonder that this town was originally called Lake City. It sits next to Wallowa Lake at the base of the Wallowa Mountains, an area known as the Alps of Oregon. But when the town was officially incorporated in 1880, it was named after one of the most important figures in the history of the entire region, Chief Joseph. Chief Joseph the Elder led the Wallowa band of the Nez Perce during the mid-1800s and advocated for peace with the US government and with the many white settlers arriving in the area. But after the government took back much of the land it had guaranteed to the Nez Perce, Joseph realized his people had been betrayed. On his deathbed, he told his son, "A few years more and white men will be all around you. They have their eyes on this land. My son, never forget my dying words. This country holds your father's body. Never sell the bones of your father and your mother." In the 1870s, as the government pressured the Nez Perce to move to a reservation in Idaho, Chief Joseph the Younger continued his father's principled and peaceful resistance. Despite Joseph's best efforts, his people were forced from their land in 1877, and the Nez Perce War began soon after. Joseph and his people, pursued by the military, fled over 1,000 miles seeking refuge in Canada, but were cornered and forced to surrender only 40 miles from the border.
Hear me, my chiefs! I am tired. My heart is sick and sad. From where the sun now stands, I will fight no more forever.
Despite the government's promises, Chief Joseph was never again allowed to live on the land where his father was buried. Today, he is remembered as a passionate advocate for peace and the rights of his people. His father is buried by the shore of Wallowa Lake.
We rejoin I-84 at Huntington, stay the night in Ontario, and continue traveling south, crisscrossing the Idaho border. When traveling in this region, it's worth the relatively short detour to explore the incredible desert scenery near Lake Owyhee.
This is Leslie Gulch. It's named after Hiram Leslie, a local cattleman who was hit and killed by lightning here in 1882. In Oregon, when you see a weird-looking rock, the explanation is almost always volcanoes. The towering spires and fascinating honeycomb formations of Leslie Gulch are composed mostly of a type of rock called tuff, which is made mostly of ash ejected from volcanic eruptions. Being relatively soft, tuff erodes easily, and over many thousands of years, rain and snow have sculpted the rock into tall pinnacles known as hoodoos.
Continuing south, we'll come to a major sharp turn in US Route 95. This is the town of Jordan Valley. This section of the highway is designated as the ION Highway. And this is the ION Heritage Museum in the old Iloriaga house.
So do you know what the ION stands for?
No, please tell me.
Idaho, Oregon, and Nevada, because this is the area that all of it comes together. So everything that's in this museum all comes from around this area.
In the middle of Jordan Valley sits this structure that almost looks like a handball court. But nobody here would call it a court, and the sport played here isn't handball. This is a fronton for playing pelota, one of the many games unique to the Basque people of northern Spain.
Pelota court is a Basque handball or racquetball. I definitely, from reading about it, would not want to have participated. It looks very painful.
The Jordan Valley area was greatly influenced by an influx of Basque immigrants in the early to mid-20th century, and the signs of Basque culture are still very visible here. The Pelota Fronton, the local Catholic church, and many of the other historic structures in town were built by the Basques. They also gave their distinctive names to various places in the area, such as Uturi Boulevard and the Iloriaga House Museum itself.
The family that lived here, Iloriagas, they were very musical, and the kids sang, they danced, they played instruments. This is actually a tapestry, but it's all the post offices in this area. We had a lot of them. This was literally the kitchen. It had a sink across here. We left one of the old stoves in just so that people could get an idea of what it looked like. This is an example of one of the old ice boxes. Those on the wall right there, those are ice tongs. The stairs when you go up are very short. You need to watch your head there if you're tall, Louis. This is from the doctors that were here in town, Doc Jones. And he was the doctor here in Jordan Valley, and this is several of his tools. This is our Jordan Valley history room. It was not called Jordan Valley originally. Originally, it was Baxterville. It became Dogtown. And then Jordan Valley, I think, was after that, because there's Jordan Creek right out of town. The younger generation isn't going to know what any of this stuff is. I mean, I haven't got a clue what 3/4 of it probably is, and the next generation's going to know even less, unless we can get them interested.
The stark, wide-open spaces in this part of Oregon are, frankly, boring to some people. But those people are wrong. These plains of rolling sagebrush are brimming with history and interest. Not far outside of Jordan Valley is one of many interesting places to be found out here, where we'll learn about this baby on Sacagawea's back.
These plaques mark the final resting place of Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, the son of Sacagawea and Toussaint Charbonneau, and the youngest member of Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery. After the successful return of the Corps of Discovery and the untimely death of Sacagawea, Charbonneau was cared for and educated by William Clark. When he was 18 years old, Charbonneau met a German nobleman who offered to bring him to Europe. There he stayed for 6 years, learning German, English, Spanish, and French. When he returned to the United States, he found work as a fur trapper, trader, hunting guide, military guide, and a 49er during the Great California Gold Rush. In 1866, he was traveling through this area when he was involved in an accident on the Owyhee River. He was most likely thrown from his horse and into the river. He contracted pneumonia and was brought here to Inskeep Station, where he died on May 16, 1866.
Cruising at high velocity down Highway 97, we approach the extremely remote border settlement of McDermitt. We've almost arrived at the last of Oregon's four corners. But first,
here, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hello everybody. My name's Joe Van Eaton. I'm also known as the White Buffalo. We are right on the top of the border of Oregon and Nevada. My house's dining room is in Nevada and the kitchen is in Oregon, so we kind of cross the border many times every day. Welcome to the White Buffalo Rock Shop. I'm also a veteran activist. I fight veteran suicide. The water tower you took pictures of with all the skulls on it. Every skull represents approximately over 15,000 veterans that have committed suicide since the Vietnam War. And as you can see, I got a lot more to put up. I got this little rock shop here, basically semi-retiring from life. Yeah, it's a cool place.
Oh, wow.
Well, most of the rocks I sell here is from McDermitt, 90%. Let me show you, if you don't mind, some of the cool stuff. Those are 110 million year old worm tunnels, and it's called chicken track. And then a lot of petrified wood out here. I look for evidence of the red-haired giants. Now, that's a mortar and pestle from the red-haired giants that used to live here. Want to shine on top of that table a minute? You see that great big white one that's there? That belonged to the giants, and all those other little ones around are from the local Indians. It just gives you a perspective of the different size that was there. They're still considered a myth. But yeah, that's what I look for. Mm-hmm. Evidence of the giants, meteorites, cool-looking or strange-looking rocks I find, I pick up. I'm very particular what I bring home. Yeah, there's some pictures of me over there on that wall. Now, that one there, I was 18 years old.
So that's a photo of you?
Yeah, that other one, that's my team. Yeah, that's me in the middle on my knees there, smoking a good morning joint, soaked in opium. You had to do something over there to keep your calm or sanity. And then the colored photo, that went in the Oregonian newspaper. That's when I walked down the highway to the Vietnam Memorial protesting the war. I tell people, when you come in here, you're going to see things that you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And it's like a little museum. They come with their kids. So I hope to strike a spark in these children's eyes. The economy is hard, so everybody's starting to find another way to make money. I just love out in the desert, Money's always good, but it's really a pleasure meeting new people like you guys,
It's tempting to use words like barren, desolate, and even, as I myself did earlier, empty to describe this part of Oregon. But if you spend time here, as we will do over the course of the next 24 hours, the eye is trained. Beauty in the expansiveness is revealed.
Going out in the desert, it's quiet, and it's just you, your God, and whatever animals you see. You become one with nature, you become one with the animals, you become one with the stars, one with the earth. Just a whole complete oneness.
We're here. With that, we have reached our ultimate destination, the southeast corner of Oregon.
I'm standing here in Oregon, Tripp is filming from Nevada, and Keegan is reporting from Idaho. Bingo.
we've now been to all 4 corners of Oregon. Our expedition's primary objectives are complete. This program up till now has been about traveling further and further off the beaten path. Not only is the southeast corner of Oregon the most remote corner of Oregon, it's also the most remote state line tri-point marker in the contiguous United States.
It's difficult enough to get here when you have online maps and a car with 4-wheel drive, so it's hard to imagine what it was like for the surveying team that located this point back in 1867.
For us, this is not the final destination of the adventure. We'll be heading back west towards home, and as we do so, we'll encounter more desert wonders and remnants of humanity that represent stories going further and further back in time. Our next destination is one of my favorite geographic features in all of Oregon, the Alvord Desert. These highways are long, usually straight, and mostly flat. Choices of pit stop are limited, so many travelers headed to the Alvord Desert will likely fuel up in the little settlement of Fields.
I am Jade Downs, and you are at the Field Station in Fields, Oregon. We are one whole town, like anything you'd find in a regular town, all kind of wrapped under one roof. Fuel, cafe, RV park, hotel units, beer, wine, grocery. We have it all. I guess our biggest draw personally in Fields is obviously our hamburgers and milkshakes.
Boy, that looks good.
We're just gonna keep adding to it. And all of our fruits are whole crushed canned fruits. So you're still getting those bits of fruit.
Look at that.
Wow. That is a fine milkshake. The Alvord Desert is a playa, or dry lake bed. Tectonic faulting has caused the desert to drop and its surroundings to rise, creating the dramatic contrast between Steens Mountain and the playa. People come from far and wide to engage in unusual wheeled pursuits, such as land sailing. Borax Lake is fed by the Borax Hot Spring, one of the 3 main geothermal springs of the Alvord Basin. The temperature of the lake water usually reaches about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly the temperature of a conventional hot tub. But swimming in it would be a big mistake for several reasons. In addition to being highly alkaline due to the presence of sodium borate, the water contains toxic concentrations of arsenic and lead, 25 times higher than the critical limit for drinking water set by the EPA. Despite all this, these waters are home to the Borax Lake chub. It's a small silvery fish in the minnow family that is only known to exist in Borax Lake, and is also the only species of fish found in the lake. Now, the water in the hot spring contains 80 parts per million sodium borate, which is very high. And when that water flows out into the surrounding area, it evaporates and leaves behind this thin white crust that we see around us. In the 1800s, that crust, made of sodium borate, was collected, put into these huge metal vats, and then boiled along with water and sulfuric acid to produce pure crystalline borax.
Mountains and wash every week. Just look at that. But heavy-duty work clothes don't scare me a bit. Not with 20 Multine borax handy.
We haven't had a chance to wash our clothes for over a week and a half. But that didn't stop us from having a great time in the Alvord Desert.
Steens Mountain doesn't look like what most people probably picture when they think of a mountain. It's shaped more like a broad ramp, with a long slope on its west side and a steep drop-off on its east side. Millions of years ago, glaciers carved a number of deep ravines into the western slopes of the mountain, creating dramatic sights like Big Indian Gorge. In the 1870s, the area was forever changed by the arrival of an industry that would come to define the American West: cattle ranching. In 1872, a man named Pete French arrived from California with 1,200 head of cattle. He had been sent by his boss, Hugh Glenn, to acquire new land holdings for what would become the French Glen Livestock Company, from which the town of French Glen takes its name. From his headquarters at the P Ranch, French acquired huge land holdings, eventually encompassing 200,000 acres and 45,000 head of cattle. But Pete French didn't get to the top without stepping on some toes along the way. He was unpopular with the local homesteaders because he controlled most of the water sources in the area, and his fences often made it quite difficult for people to reach their properties. One of the main competitors of the P Ranch was the operation run by David Shirk and his brother William, who made claims in the Catlow Valley in 1874, and later expanded to the Guano Valley. At one point, the Shirk's Catlow Valley holdings covered 50,000 acres and controlled much of the water in the valley. This led to conflict with the P Ranch, which was expanding south into the same area. Hostility occasionally boiled over into violence, as on one occasion in 1889 when David Shirk shot and killed one of French's employees during a dispute over a land claim. After Shirk was acquitted, he moved his home ranch west to his Guano Valley property, where it stands to this day. This house and the buildings surrounding it once sat at the heart of a 1,080-acre horse ranch. The house itself was constructed in 1910 and was actually used by ranchers well into the 1980s when it was acquired by the Bureau of Land Management. The Shirk Ranch was the site of a number of violent incidents during the waning years of the 19th century. On one occasion during the Bannock War of 1878, William Shirk was traveling with 2 wagon drivers when they were ambushed by Bannock warriors. The wagon drivers were killed and Shirk was pursued for several miles, barely escaping with his life. Just a month prior, several bands of Bannocks and Paiutes had attacked the P Ranch, nearly killing Pete French himself. On a knoll overlooking the ranch house, a small stone monument marks the final resting place of 2 mysterious men, Bill Vickers and Jay Grunke. The grave marker offers no details about them other than that they were shot on August 14, 1887. There are various stories about who they were and how they met their end at the Shirk Ranch, but most agree that Vickers was an outlaw on the run from Idaho Sheriff George Dunning. Vickers and his young companion Grunke were hiding out at the Shirk Ranch when they were cornered and killed by either Dunning or Shirk, or possibly both.
Birds and the bats of this place are probably about to freak out.
Today, the West isn't as wild as it used to be. Cattle ranching remains at the center of the local economy and culture, but modern amenities have made life on the range less perilous, and disputes are more often settled with lawyers than with guns. Only a handful of the original homesteads remain, some in better condition than others.
Our adventure through Oregon has taken us further and further from the commonly visited places. With fewer people around to disturb and change things, history is well preserved here. Our adventure through Oregon has taken us further and further into the past. The last place we'll visit is also the oldest. Southeastern Oregon is a great place to go if you want to see petroglyphs, carvings in stone made by ancient humans tens of thousands of years ago. One petroglyph site that's easy to visit if you're heading along Route 140 is the Greaser petroglyph, which features some amazingly clear images. But there's more to be found if you're a brave driver, with the right automobile.
In places like this, you're not just off the beaten path. Out here, the path beats you. Over the course of this expedition, we've had some hard traveling, but this route truly stretched the definition of what could be considered a road. From a bird's eye view, it's just one old dry lake bed out of hundreds in the northern Great Basin. But from ground level, history comes alive in this place.
That's incredible.
The remote and inconspicuous nature of Long Lake is what has allowed it to preserve a secret older than history itself. Across 2 miles of rim rock along the southern edge of the lake bed, 1,300 petroglyphs tell the mysterious story of this land's earliest human inhabitants. The vicinity of Long Lake contains the richest collection of petroglyphs anywhere in Oregon. These images, made by scraping, scratching, pecking, and drilling into the surface of the basalt rock, portray a wide variety of subjects. The meaning of these images remains a topic of study and debate. One popular hypothesis is that they depict the hallucinatory vision quests practiced by shamans of the early northern Paiute tribes. One scholar even believes that some petroglyphs at Long Lake depict the supernova of 1054 that created the Crab Nebula. Whatever they mean, archaeologists agree that some of the petroglyphs are much older than others, meaning that the area was inhabited for a very long period of time. But long ago, the lakes receded, and many of the area's main food sources went with them. Compared to its former state, the Long Lake of today is barren and empty, uninhabited and visited only occasionally by cattle ranchers, deer hunters, and documentary filmmakers.
This whole idea of essentially circumnavigating Oregon's state borders in search of the corners and the stories that lie between them has indeed taken us just about as far back into the human past as one can go in North America. This is our last big stop of the road trip before we return home to Ashland. Maybe this has inspired you to go on your own Oregon road trip, or plan one in your own home, wherever you live. Maybe this reveals that there are interesting stories in even the most remote places. Maybe you've been able to reflect on the past when people lived both in fear of nature and in awe of it. Ultimately, like all the shows we make, this is simply something to start you out. The takeaways are yours to find, and the meanings yours to create. I'm Keegan Van Hook, joined by my friends Louis Bankston and Trip White. This has been The Four Corners of Oregon, and this is Us As We Are.